Welcome to a special college game day from the site of the latest game of the century. The Tomahawk Chop arriving yesterday. The pilot getting into the spirit of it. A quiet bus ride for the Seminoles as they get a glimpse of the Golden Dome, then go through a very loose workout and face the media crush. Charlie Ward and the Seminoles pleased by the condition of the field, not worried about the weather forecast. Then the madness of the pep rally last night.
Florida State said they don't know anything about Mystique, and they're not worried about the Mystique at Notre Dame, and I find no problem with them saying that. I respect that. They've never been around Mystique. How would they recognize it?
Holtz with the salvo last night. This morning, thousands of fans still looking for tickets, young and old, getting pumped up, not worried about the cold and misty weather. The players of Notre Dame arriving about an hour ago. They get to the stadium 3 hours before kickoff. Earlier than any team in America, they had their game faces on. We are just across the street from Notre Dame Stadium at the Ed Joyce Center, live for a special college game day and surrounded by all kinds of memorabilia, a reminder of the great tradition of this Notre Dame program. And today's game, just the latest chapter in that great history. Hi, everybody. Chris Fowler, along with the coach, Lee Corso, the pony, Craig James, and about 2,000 Irish and Seminole fans. They have been yelling. They are revved up. These guys are definitely revved up. Only in college football can you have a regular season event of this magnitude, because other sports settle things with the playoff, and it's much more special, of course, to have it on a college campus. Pam Oliver also joining us this morning on campus. She's over at the stadium with the latest on that critical issue, the weather.
Well, thanks, Chris. I am no Lee Corso when it comes to reporting the weather, but we'll give it a shot. The National Weather Service says temperatures should be in the mid-60s around game time. Right now, it is dank and overcast and misty with temperatures in the 50-degree range. The biggest problem for both teams today could possibly be the winds. Right now, it is 15 to 20 miles an hour. Gusts could reach up to 30 miles an hour. Of course, that would be a difficult situation, especially for the kickers, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that today. Let's go back to you.
All right, Pam, we'll talk a lot more about how the weather might affect the game coming up. But now, as Florida State's players are arriving about 2 hours before kickoff, Craig, set the scene for us in the minds of guys on both teams.
Well, for Notre Dame, and you mentioned it, they go 3 hours to the stadium before the football game kicks off. That would drive me nuts as a football player. Notre Dame, it works for them. But you look at the Irish sitting in a locker room, the biggest games of their lives. Florida State, they show up, put their shoes on, the helmet on, they go on the football field, and they play. I could not have dealt with a 3-hour wait.
Well, it's about, let's see, 11:40. Let me tell you what Lou Holtz is doing. He's in the dressing room and he's doing math. That's right. He does math to keep his mind focused, and he keeps sharp that way. What's Bobby Bowden doing? He gets nervous. He eats when he gets nervous. He's got about 25 sweet rolls, and man, he's eating those things left and right.
Today, obviously, a huge moment for both coaches. For Bobby Bowden, so close so many times to a national championship, hadn't gotten it done, but this year he's cleared a major hurdle. He's beaten Miami. Now he's presented with perhaps the all-time scheduling challenge for a coach. Is time running out for Bowden? Is this the good year? Meanwhile, in the 1 versus 2 games, Bowden 0-1. That would be the loss to Miami. Lou Holtz 2-0 in 1 versus 2 games. He's in his element. His team is an underdog at home, and he's had 2 weeks to prepare. Now, these coaches are old friends. They've known each other since 1959, and in 1963, Lou Holtz and his new bride even crashed at the Bowden household on their honeymoon.
We didn't have any money on a honeymoon, so we went to Florida and stayed with some friends, and one of the families we stayed with was Bobby and Ann and their 5 children, and went to the office with Bobby. We stayed with them 2 or 3 days.
And naturally, all we talked about was football. And
some honeymoon.
Yeah, some honeymoon. I know his wife enjoyed those films. And
it was no laughing matter the first time their teams met in 1970. In his West Virginia debut, Bowden pasted Holtz's outman tribe from William and Mary 43-7.
he felt like we scored a touchdown at the end that we shouldn't have scored. And at that, I mean, I just went out and coached as hard as I could coach, you know. And so, boy, he came out there and got all over me. And I'm thinking, hey, I thought we were friends or something, you know.
I can't believe you ran up the score. I thought we were friends. And he said, I want to tell you, he said, 1, you can only coach one team in a game. You coach yours, I'll coach mine. 2, it's your job to hold the score down. It's not mine.
Holtz never forgot that first encounter. He moved on to North Carolina State in '72 and only needed to wait until New Year's Eve in the Peach Bowl for a chance at payback against Bowden. Their third meeting was a showcase for each other's ingenuity, but State blew open a close game in the second half and routed the Mountaineers 49-13.
We were favored, and he beat us to death. And I mean late in the game, I'm talking about in the fourth quarter when he's ahead and he's got the game right, he onside kicks, gets it and scores again, you know. So he got me put in my place pretty quick.
Now, even though it's been 18 years since their last meeting, Bowden claims there are no mysteries, no surprises when he meets a Lou Holtz team.
He is going to try to physically beat Florida State. Now, I ain't saying he ain't going to cut something loose on. He's going to cut some stuff loose. But I know this, he'll be jumping up and down. He'll be eating that grass over on that sideline if that running game is pounding us and knocking us out there.
Keep an eye out for Holtz eating grass today.
Yeah.
Now, I think some teams and some coaches will be psyched out by Holtz and Notre Dame. We don't think Bobby Bowden one of those coaches.
No, I don't think so, Chris. Remember, Bowden is no rookie in this situation. Bobby Bowden is 9-3 in big games in big stadiums up north. Florida State will not be intimidated by Notre Dame for one simple reason. They beat Miami this year, and Florida State has a lot of confidence.
Well, they have confidence, but that big victory they had against the University of Miami, I think the thing that they have going for them right now is that Bobby Bowden is consistent. His jovial, relaxed attitude carries over to his football team. Yesterday at practice, the players were out on the field relaxed, having fun. You cannot have an uptight football player and perform to his utmost capabilities.
Lou Holtz, an interesting situation.
Yeah, well, Lou Holtz is a great motivator, but people forget also that he's an outstanding football coach, fundamentally sound. To give you an example for that, Lou Holtz's football team at Notre Dame has not had a single turnover in the last 14 quarters. That guy can coach football. There's no question about it.
This has been a typical year. We have not had a year, Lee, since my second year here, that we haven't started off the season with a national controversy. Now, what happens is people forget what controversy happened last year because it's replaced by the controversy this year.
Did you ever think you'd get into a situation where they would write a book about you that kind of bothered you as much as this one did?
I never said it bothered me. I've never read it and haven't gone and read it.
How did you react to it from your own side, inside? You know, this is a difficult situation. How did you handle it inside? Inside.
I think that's very, very personal, and I don't talk about my personal life and what I do here. And I am not going to let false accusations affect the way I react.
It was painful that I know what he stands in, I know what he believes in, and I know he's lived his whole life trying to live by his rule, doing what's right, doing what he thinks best, and believing in it instead of straddling the fence.
Adversity usually will bring you closer together. As I told our players so many times, the only friends you have in this world when things don't go well are those you eat with, sleep with, bleed with, pray with, and cry with, and that involves your teammates and your family.
I think he does a great job of bringing the team together and circling the wagon, so to speak, and putting a centerpiece in the middle where they have something to stand against.
Since I've been here, Navy always has played us very, very tough.
Beginning of the week, the other team looks like the Dallas Cowboys to you.
They do.
That's right.
That's
and then you tell everybody in the world, this is the greatest team, and they got this and that. Do you really think people believe you?
I don't care whether they believe me or not, Lee. I'm sure people didn't believe Gene Stallings last week when they were a 23-point favorite over LSU. I don't think that they believe me at Navy, and yet when we're behind 24-17.
We don't pick up the paper here. Basically, we try not to read what's in the newspaper. We try to stay away from what's going on. We'll look at pictures here and there, but honestly, we try not to believe too much of what he says in the paper because it could say anything.
We don't have great speed at the tailback position. We aren't very big at the fullback position, and I don't think we're as good fundamentally as what we really and truly need to be. We are not a very good football team.
Lou, you started the year with a young team, and what did you really expect from these guys?
I've probably been a little bit more patient at times than I normally have, but it's just the fact that there weren't great expectations. It was, let's just find a way to win. We don't need to impress anybody. We don't need to worry about honors. Let's just play it for each other.
Adversity is certainly his element. We talked about how we get a kick out of him saying every week we can't pass, we can't run, we can't punt. What about the players? How do they react?
Well, you heard them. They try not to read the newspapers. That's one thing for certain. But the biggest part about Lou Holtz and his coaching career is that he understands today how to handle today's mentally delicate athletes. That's a tough job, maybe the toughest part of coaching in today's environments. He uses all kinds of methods to motivate his football players, and that's why he's successful.
What do you call them, mentally delicate?
Yes.
Man, they egos, too much pride.
Well, Lee told us how Mr. Holtz spends the morning of the game doing multiplication tables. Pam Oliver interrupted that math homework to talk to him just a little while ago over at the stadium.
Go, baby!
Morning, Coach. How you feeling today?
I'm all right, thank you.
Are you glad this is almost about to be over for you?
Well, I don't try to rush things, nor do I try to delay them. You know, whatever happens, happens.
What's your motivational message for your players today?
I think that just basically we're playing. Well, let me just start that over.
Okay.
I hadn't really given an awful lot of thought, but I think that the mistake about Notre Dame is a faith and a belief. Our players have to believe in ourselves. I think we're good enough to beat Florida State. A lot of people think we need a miracle. I just think we have to play very, very well.
Weather not too bad, a bit cold, but windy. Is the wind concerned you at all?
I want to tell you, this is not cold. Now, this is going to be 62 degrees, and I think the field's going to be dry. The wind is always a factor. I really dislike the wind, particularly when you have some problems with the kicking game.
Okay, Coach, I really appreciate your time. Good luck today.
Well, thank you. We've sure enjoyed having you up here this week.
Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.
We're certainly gracious hosts to us this week. Now, our tour on campus this week stops on just 2 campuses, this one and in Tallahassee, looking at some Seminoles and some Irish with mutual ties, literally, and the closest thing that Florida State has to an old tradition.
Deep in the heart of Tallahassee lies an ancient burial ground. Well, at least it's been there since 1962. Since then, it's been a Seminole tradition to remove a piece of turf following an important road win. The sod is returned home where it's given a proper burial, including a headstone. Not surprisingly, there is a plot reserved for the Irish turf. There'll be some Tallahassee ties on the Notre Dame sidelines today. Irish secondary coach Joe Wessel played under Bobby Bowden in 1984 when he set an NCAA record with 3 punts blocked returned for touchdowns. Also, Skip Holtz got his start as a graduate assistant under Bowden. He also met Florida native Jennifer Fitzgerald, who later became his wife and quickly changed her colors.
She keeps telling me she's given birth to a baby domer, so she's transferred over now. She's that blue and gold.
FSU true freshman running back Warrick Dunn has overcome adversity with some help from his friends. After his mother, a Baton Rouge policewoman, was killed in the line of duty this past January, Warrick turned to his new roommate, Charlie Ward, who helped him fill a void in his life.
He treats me like a brother. We treat each other like brothers. I mean, to me, this is a special relationship.
It's been a prosperous one as well, with Warrick second on the team in rushing, while averaging more than 8 yards per carry.
All right, the countdown to kickoff continues. No shortage of wackos on this campus this week. And on the subject of wackos, Mr. Vitale, his prediction on the game, he lives in Florida, didn't make a difference.
I've been to every home game in the last 4 years, and my heart says Notre Dame because my 2 girls, Terry and Sherry, go here to Notre Dame, and certainly I have to cheer for the Golden Domers and the Fighting Irish. I think if you look at the situation, Florida State the better team, but for one game, the lady on the dome is going to smile, and unfortunately, they're going to go back to Tallahassee, baby, with a big L.
What does he know about the ball with the points on it? When we come back on game day, Scott Bentley certainly under pressure in South Bend, and Kevin Pendergast, a football neophyte. They could play a part. Also, we'll look back at the long history of the Irish in 1 versus 2 games, including Era's tie. And we'll break down the game plans, the scrambling, the mobility of Charlie Ward for Florida State, and what did Joe Montana and Dan Tana have in common. Look at a comparison of these 2 schools. A lot more coming up as we continue on a special college game day from the site of the big game. We'll visit that field. The tarp still on a misty day. 1 versus 2 in South Bend. More in a minute.
College Game Day is brought to you by Wrangler, the most comfortable jeans known to man. And welcome back inside the house that Rockne built, the fabled stadium, basically unchanged since 1930, based on a design for Michigan Stadium, by the way. It's not that intimidating a stadium as you come in here. The stands are not down on top of you like they are at Florida Field or Neyland Stadium, some other places, but the sidelines are very congested. It's very close to the field, kind of claustrophobic for a visiting player, Craig.
I think, though, the thing that I look at this stadium is the tradition, the history, and the players, when they come down the tunnel, play like a champion. There's an honor they have to uphold here at Notre Dame. There is a responsibility for each and every one of those players. But Florida State's football team could care less about the Golden Dome, touchdown Jesus, or anything else. They're worried about playing the football game only.
As a Florida State coach, I'd be concerned on the quality of those players coming out of that tunnel. They can play. Another thing that would be my factor in this game would be the fact that the student body sits from the 50 all the way around here. 10,000 of them. So if it's the fourth quarter and I'm trying to win the game, I want to be going that way, away from the student body.
Even into the wind?
Absolutely, away from the student body. They could disrupt everything.
If you're the Florida State kicker, Scott Bentley, you definitely want to be away from the students. He figures to be a target of a lot of their ire. Of course, the heavily recruited kicker who was going to go to Notre Dame his entire life until he changed his mind in January. Meanwhile, Notre Dame's kicker, Kevin Pendergrass, also a very interesting story. He wasn't supposed to be here today. He was supposed to be a soccer player. Here's a look now at the two guys who will decide this game if it comes down to a kick.
If everything had gone as expected, Scott Bentley would be Kevin Pendergast today.
I was upset a year ago, and it didn't work out that my dream came true and I went to Notre Dame, but there's no hard feelings on my part. If he had come here, I would have done the best I could to compete with him for a job, but I guess if his going to Florida State was the reason I'm kicking now, then I would have to say I'm glad.
Bentley's recruitment made national news, an SI cover boy before he ever played a game. Pendergast was a cover boy as well, but on the Soccer Media Guide. An emergency 2 years ago forced Holtz to try out soccer players, and with no football experience since the age of 5, Pendergast won the job.
I can't believe I'm seeing this kid who's played soccer his whole life out there, even with a football uniform. I have to get a chuckle each time I see this. I've kind of been thrown into this without too many expectations. I think everybody looked at Notre Dame's kicking game this year as a big question mark, and if we made a single field goal this year, it would be a bonus.
Bentley's freshman year has had its ups and downs, but today's game is special. His father, Bob, was a two-sport letterman at Notre Dame and wanted Scott to attend there as well, but he rejected the Irish offer and got the well-publicized tongue lashing from Holtz. He says that's not a factor today.
A lot of people say, this is the big one. I get to prove myself, put a little revenge factor on Lou Holtz, but in my mind, it has nothing to do with that.
I don't know that I'm going to cheer against Notre Dame. I do know that I'm going to cheer for Florida State.
The kickers' fathers differ not only on who to root for, but also on how close the score should be as the clock winds down.
I'd hate to see a game of this magnitude come down to a kick for either team. I kind of like that Miami 28-7. I think any parent would.
I think the ideal scenario would be with seconds left on the clock and 2 points down and the game on the line, that he gets a chance to go out there and bang one through, and there we are. We're now number one, and to me that's the ideal. And certainly would have to be in the end where touchdown Jesus is saying it's good.
Holtz sent a nice letter to Bentley this week wishing him well, but maybe he also sent him a message last night when he introduced Pendergrass at the pep rally as the best kicker on the field today. Hey, one thing the kickers will not have to worry about is a sloppy track. They kept the tarp on overnight until mid-morning. It rained all night, but the grass is cut very low, Craig.
Yesterday at Florida State's practice, they were all excited, especially the wide receivers, about it being a tight carpet. These guys will fly around. They like that mentally. But don't be deceived, because it's also going to help Notre Dame's offensive line. It'll give those big hogs a chance to get their cleats in the ground, move people out on that Florida State defensive line.
As a coach of a passing team, I'm not concerned about the ground as much as I am the wind. This stadium goes north and south. The wind's coming from the south, but it doesn't swirl. The reason it doesn't swirl is because the stadium's not high enough. But I tell you what, if you're throwing a ball that way deep, it could cause a problem.
But if you're Notre Dame defensive back, you kind of hope that wind picks up floaters interception.
Well, if history is any guide, the wind's going to start to swirl. If Florida State tries a kick, it'll calm down if Notre Dame is set up for a game-winning field goal. And history, a big part of this place. This happens to be the 25th anniversary of the last 1-versus-2 game at Notre Dame Stadium and the 50th anniversary of the very first. Let's take a look back at some of the great games here as Game Day looks back.
November 20th, 1943, number 1 Notre Dame had beaten number 2 Michigan 6 weeks earlier when they faced the new number 2 Iowa Pre-Flight. All-American Angelo Bertelli led Notre Dame to a 1914 victory in their 4th national championship. Exactly 25 years later, the UPI's number 1 Irish hosted the AP's number 1 Purdue. Boilermaker All-American Leroy Keys ran for 2 touchdowns as the Irish fell 37-22 and finished 8th in the country. 2 years earlier, Ara Parseghian sparked a controversy that still remains unsettled. Trailing in Michigan State 10-0, the Irish rallied to even the score, but ran out the clock and settled for a tie. Perhaps Farsegian knew what he was doing, as the Irish would still claim their 8th national title. After beating USC in his first 1 versus 2 a year earlier, Lou Holtz faced Bo's boys in week 2 of '89. Schembechler's refusal to kick away from the Rocket cost the Wolverines, as Ismail returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns. The Irish won 24-19, but later lost to Miami to finish number 2.
There's another epic chapter about to unfold. We've got the build-up. Now let's see what the game brings. Florida State players arriving about 15 minutes ago. When we continue on College Game Day, we'll break down that Irish running game. Strong inside game of the Irish. Can they overpower the smaller, quicker Knowles defense? Nobody has yet this year. Old friends reunited, a lot of that this weekend on a big game weekend in South Bend. Welcome back to a special College Game Day, the Irish and the Seminoles. The countdown continues. Eppercon didn't look too good on the left there, does he? Welcome back inside the Joyce Center, the Notre Dame Heritage Hall. Chris Fowler along with Lee Corso and Craig James. Now, there's certainly a Florida connection on this Notre Dame team. Oscar McBride, the tight end, Clinton Johnson, also from the state of Florida, and so is their quarterback, Kevin McDougal. A little while ago, he spoke with our Pam Oliver.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How you doing today?
All right, I'm doing pretty good.
How you feeling?
Pretty good. Just, ready to get the game on and have some fun.
Did you sleep pretty well last night? Did you sleep pretty well last night?
Oh, definitely. I'm relaxed. I'm just ready to play today.
What do you think is the most important thing for you to do today?
I think just stay calm and stay focused and, just have fun and show a lot of confidence in my teammates.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
All right, welcome back inside. How dominant have the Seminoles been so far? They are number 1 in the country in both scoring defense and scoring offense. Remember, at one time, about 4 games into the season, their defense was outscoring the opponent's offense. The Seminole offense, meanwhile, scoring 44.3 points per game. Number 1 in the rankings, number 1 in scoring defense, number 1 in scoring offense. They also have, of course, the number 1 player in college football so far, Charlie Ward. A big game for his Heisman chances today, and Lou Holtz knows that all of that scoring offense stems from number 17. A good ball game today. You can just about hand deliver that chunk of bronze to Tallahassee. If he struggles, there may be a Heisman race. Here's Holtz on the effect that Ward has on that Knowles offense.
Nobody is inhuman, and 16 touchdowns and 1 interception is rather incredible, and that's because he got great peripheral vision. And he has the ability to scramble, and the receivers do a great job of finding the open areas, so they make a lot of big plays. I know they run a fast break offense, and sometimes you have to use a full court press. I think that we're going to have to pressure them a little bit.
To keep it in a basketball mode,
yeah.
When you full court press, sometimes you give up an easy layup. It's a gamble with a guy that good.
Well, let me tell you about Charlie Ward. When he scrambles, he's got such a great athletic ability. He can dismantle even the most defensive and disciplined football teams. And let me tell you how he does it. The defensive backs have a tendency to look at Ward and forget the receivers. And as soon as they do that, boom, those receivers are gone.
They have a set drill. This is not just a haphazard thing when Ward does scramble. These receivers know when he takes off, gets out of the pocket, and guys start to trace him, they have a very specific assignment, don't they?
Right. Let me tell you what happens. When Ward goes their way, the outside receiver's responsibility is to go down and out, and his inside receiver is to go to the inside. Now, as we watch this play here, watch the outside receiver as he starts out and up while the inside receiver is going across the field. As Ward scrambles towards them, the outside receiver's rule is immediately go up the field while the inside receiver goes to the nearest sideline. Watch Ward as he scrambles to the right here. He sees Matt Fryer against Miami. It's a design play. He hits Matt Fryer for a touchdown. That play was designed. I think that will be one of the key things in this ballgame. I think Charlie Ward is head and shoulders above anybody in college football in the ability to make the big play off the scramble.
Of course, though, if you're Notre Dame's defensive coordinator and their secondary, you're really worried about this, but they have faced a running quarterback before. First game of the season against Northwestern, it was Lynn Williams, their quarterback, who presented a little bit of a problem for them. You see what I'm talking about here? Williams, he made them struggle because of his athletic ability. Yes, it is similar to Ward's, but this guy's nowhere near as quick. Once that secondary makes their move, then somebody's going to beat them. It's going to be a real challenge, but there is a huge difference between Williams and Ward. Once Williams leaves the pocket, he runs the football. Once Ward leaves the pocket, the guy may pull up at the line of scrimmage on the outside and throw the football, just as you saw on that tape.
But the big scramble that did beat Miami for the touchdown there. A big question for me, can the sophomores on Florida State's offensive line handle the experienced seniors of the Notre Dame defensive line. Florida State's offensive line as healthy as they have been for a big game in a long, long time. Meanwhile, for the Notre Dame offense, we all know it's power football, and something that Bobby Bowden says reminds him of Lou Holtz's mentor, Woody Hayes, old-fashioned smash mouth.
But I watched his offense. It reminded me of the old Ohio State teams of Woody Hayes back in the late 60s and early 70s. You know, they just took the ball and physically took it to you and tried to beat you physically, you know. And they were so good, they did it most of the time.
One thing Notre Dame does, and they do it well, is drive the defensive line downfield. Face a lot of 8-men fronts, but they still excel. Look how the backside guard and tackle open up a huge hole for the running back. Even Corso could have gotten through this thing.
No.
That is stretching it just a little bit. But the bottom line, against USC, they had 8 men on the line of scrimmage again. Yet they still smash-mouth killed the football players. These two football teams are undefeated because their offensive line plays hard, smart, tough, aggressive football. And today, battle stations will be manned.
The battle will be decided in the trenches by foot soldiers dug in at the line of scrimmage.
We've got to attack, and we've got to move people around. You know, we can't attack the same people all game. So we're gonna spread out the black and blue marks on our football players.
With an average weight of 290 pounds across the front, the Irish offensive line will enjoy a robust advantage.
But no one's like Notre Dame. Notre Dame knows how to continue to pound the ball at you, and eventually you're going to break, and they just keep pounding and pounding.
We're going to get tested in a dimension we have not been tested before. We've played against big athletes, but these are big, athletic football players. They got ability.
People have kind of looked down on us all year, and here's another challenge, Notre Dame. People think they're going to run all over us, and that's just not going to happen.
The Seminole front seven will compensate with what at times will appear like 15 men on the field, as their quick pursuit to the ball will be a real advantage.
No team has really had a bunch of success running the ball, and we'd like to do that. We're going to have to play pretty much flawless football if we hope to move the ball on them, especially on the ground.
We'll throw the ball a little bit to keep people off balance, just to make sure they're playing us honestly and not trying to cheat the run. But if they come up and take away the run, I feel very comfortable we can throw the ball to win.
We're not just a unidimensional team, and we do have an aerial attack.
When Notre Dame has been able to pass, they've done it effectively only after they've established the run through play action. The key remains, though, the hand-to-hand combat.
You know, he's got these gorillas on the offensive line. And we're going to go after them with gazelles. I don't know who's going to win the battle when they run into each other.
I don't know anything about gazelles and zoo warfare, but I do know that Notre Dame can run the football. They will run the football today. Therefore, I think the play-action pass will be a key part of that offense.
Nice shot about that running situation, but let me tell you something. I was a quarterback. I was too smart to be a running back.
Yeah, right.
Right. Let me tell you about Notre Dame. Notre Dame's key play, 1st and 10. They average over 6 yards per rush on 1st and 10. Notre Dame can run the ball against Florida State on 1st and 10. The Noles are in trouble. Here's what must happen. Florida State must blitz or do something to get Notre Dame in long yardage situations, advantage Florida State.
I did not sense the same confidence from the Florida State defensive coaches this week that did from their offensive coaches. You're right. It's a major concern. Absolutely. There's another Bowden, by the way, who's busy today on the road in hostile territory. Terry Bowden at Auburn, down between the hedges. It's a game that Georgia must have to keep their bowl hopes alive. They also have to beat Georgia Tech. But once again, Terry is not going to be able to watch a big game involving his dad.
For 9 years, I've been coaching in college, and every year there's one game of the century that's being played the same time mine's being played. So I usually just have to listen to the loudspeaker to see when it's announced at the stadium and see if my dad's winning the big game.
Meanwhile, back to Georgia now. The players had a gripe session when they were 0-4 in the SEC, and their input in the offense was they wanted to throw the ball more. Ever since that meeting, they've thrown the ball 2/3 of the time. They had run the ball more than half the time before that meeting.
Well, let me tell you why they didn't throw it so much. When Coach Ray Goff was a quarterback at Georgia in the mid-'70s, he threw the ball 74 times in 3 years. Eric Zier has thrown the ball 3 times that much in 4 weeks with 1,700 yards. I like Georgia in this one in a big upset.
Big upset?
Yeah.
No, not so fast. Auburn may be undefeated. Georgia is favored in this game, a slight favorite at home.
To me, it's an upset.
I don't care anything about statistics or all those things that whoever that guy was did back in the 60s or 70s. Auburn's on a mission. This team wants to win the national championship. In the AP poll, they have a way to do it. They've got to beat Georgia. They have Stan White. Eric Sires a great quarterback. But Auburn has that tough defense. They're smart, and they have a will and a way.
Wrong. Auburn loses the ball game. Georgia wins it.
Right,
we'll see.
Right.
Watch the game.
Norm Hitchcock checks in with his predictions when we continue on this special college game day. The Tomahawk Chop folks warming up outside of Notre Dame Stadium. We'll continue from South Bend right after this. Welcome back. The T-shirt wars continue. Kiss my shamrock. Meanwhile, some guys checking in with some predictions on today's game.
I think the closest game is a Miami game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And that was 28-10. And this Notre Dame game is going to at least be about 14, if Notre Dame plays his best ball.
As a man from Florida, let me tell you.
You're a traitor anyway. You just mad because we didn't recruit you.
Now tell me this. I could have played for Florida State, but I wanted to win a national championship. Thank you. Pat Carter, can I have your opinion on the game?
Matter of fact, I'd rather take over the microphone.
Great. And there you have it, folks. Notre Dame by 6, South Bend, Indiana. Watch it. Be there.
Welcome back. We'll trade a 5-day vacation to Orlando for 2 tickets. Was that 5 days at Corso's house in Orlando? I'd trade that for some tickets for this game as well. You can tell this is not just a football game. This is a happening. Paul Azinger, Roger Clemens, Spike Lee, lots of folks are going to be here. Al Gore, Andre Agassi, some others got turned down as further proof that this has transcended game status. All kinds of special things going on this week. Matter of fact, if you're here at the game, you want to send a postcard or a letter home to folks, you can get a special postmark that they're doing. The U.S. Postal Service involved in the promotion of this game, and the Golden Dome Station will stamp your envelope for a keepsake permanently. Also, they've chosen this weekend as a chance to unveil a brand new scent. It is Seminole. Smells like a national championship, they say. I don't know, it's produced in Ann Arbor. What's next? Wolverine. Smells like a small rodent. We know one thing. This stuff does not smell like a national championship. Mr. Corso's wearing it today.
I bought my partner a bottle. You need it.
Thank you, Ray.
We make no correlation between the terrible scent of this cologne and the quality of Norm Hitchcock's predictions, but he does join us now from Dallas, trying to get up over the 500 mark. Norm, we've talked about all kinds of aspects and angles to this game. What about a handicapping angle?
Chris, if history teaches us anything about these games of the century, it's to take the underdog. The last 9 years, number ones faced number 2 9 times. From a handicapping perspective, the underdogs 9-0. Fabulous Florida State has one tiny weakness, stopping the run. Miami controlled the ball on the ground for large chunks of time, and Notre Dame's a vastly superior running team to the Canes. The Seminoles on the road versus winning teams are just 4-7 recently. The Irish ground game plays keep away, and they take away the top ranking. Can you imagine a team whose offense hasn't scored in 3 games and hasn't thrown a touchdown pass all season being a big favorite? That's Vandy today. Navy's fabulous as a road underdog, coming off huge losses like their last one to Notre Dame, 22-2 versus the line. Vandy, looking ahead to Florida and Tennessee, gets sunk by the Navy. One of football's most fundamental aspects leads to Georgia Tech's blowout of Wake Forest. Tech can run the ball, nearly 6 yards a carry the last 5 games. Wake allows over 5 yards per rush. Wake Forest gets run over. We get to take one of our favorite underdogs again today. New Mexico's not won 5 games in a season in a decade, but the feisty Lobos get number 5 today, making them 4-0 as a home underdog. Finally, has a running back ranked number 2 in rushing yards in major college football ever gotten less publicity than Texas Tech's Bam Morris? Over 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns. Today, Tech's explosive offense, featuring the Southwest Conference's number 1 runner, passer, and receiver, keeps giving it to Bam, Bam, and eventually reduces SMU's defense to pebbles.
All right, Norm, thank you. Look for your pro picks tomorrow. Once again, going against the Ponies team, but going with Norm and the Notre Dame pick, Bino Cook. They've been playing big games of Notre Dame for 70 years. He will join us later. Newt Rockne, a big part of that tradition. What does Florida State have for tradition? Lee Corso? It's a mismatch. We'll look at these two universities comparison coming up. In the meanwhile, the fans here have upped the ante. It's no longer just 5 days down in Orlando. Now it's a Mercedes-Benz for 2 tickets. That's how big it is. Lee wants to trade his Mercedes for a press pass. We'll come back with more from South Bend in a minute. Welcome back. The Bowden-Holt showdown coming up. Two of the more animated coaches in college football. Get it? Animated? Lou doesn't look good there. He looked a lot better this morning when he talked to Pam. But you say there's something that's factually outdated about that cartoon,
yeah, especially with Bobby Bowden. Bobby Bowden has turned over the play calling calls. Right now, offensively, the offensive coordinator, Brad Scott. Bobby Bowden is now acting as a CEO. He doesn't call the plays as he has in the past. Notice him last year. He's in direct contact with the press box. He was calling the plays. This year, more relaxed. He makes the major decisions. On the other side of the ball, Lou Holtz is an active coach. He doesn't have headsets on because he doesn't want to talk to anybody and have them disrupt him. But I think one of the major reasons that Florida State is doing really well on offense is the fact that they've got a new offensive caller in Brad Scott, and he's got them really going wild.
There's evidence of that in the Miami game. When Florida State got ahead in a big game, they did not just shut down the fast-break offense. They kept after it. Now, this morning, Pam Oliver spoke with Bowden as the countdown continues to kickoff.
Good morning, Coach. How you feeling?
Hey, Pam, how you doing? Feeling real good. It's about time, isn't it?
Any thoughts about the weather? What concerns you?
Looks like this. Looks sent from heaven.
The weather, as far as the winds, are you concerned about the wind?
No, we played the rain 3 times.
What do you think your team's chances are today? Everyone seems pretty relaxed.
Well, yeah, we got to play the game, see who's the best.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Got to play the game, see who's the best. Yeah. Final coach's cliche before he heads inside the locker room. Let's start to break down some of the aspects of this ball game now. Florida State, it's really strength versus strength because they have great big play receivers. Notre Dame's got good tackling secondary guys.
Well, Chris, let me give you a stat. It's really astounding. Florida State's wideouts have caught 62% of all of the receptions this year. But the thing they do best is after they catch the ball, boom, they turn into a ball carrier. They do better than any other team in the nation. If you'll notice when they catch the ball on a short pass, like Kaz does right in here, they like to throw the ball short to the receivers. Now notice, count the yardage he makes after he catches the football. There's 5, there's 10. They do this constantly. What happens in this situation is they make little plays into big plays, and I think, Craig, that's going to be a major part in this ball game. The yardage that Florida State makes after they catch the ball against those Notre Dame defensive backs.
I'll tell you what I did notice in that film right there. I noticed that was the University of Maryland that they were running against right there, and it's not Notre Dame. It'll be a much tougher secondary today that Florida State faces, and they're a secondary that has 3 or 4 good, solid players led by number 21, Bobby Taylor, and this guy on the outside controls things. This guy's going to play on Sunday afternoons. Notice how quick he comes out of his coverage to the receiver. Boom! Said a whoop, there it is. Now, when it comes to the center of the field, number 9, Jeff Burris, he controls that secondary part. There is nobody that's going to have a big gap between the Notre Dame secondary and the Florida State receivers. One key issue here, though, is the health of the Irish secondary. 3 of their defensive backs had to sit out practice this week. They are expected to play, but as you know, Bobby Taylor has a pulled groin, which could affect him.
Not so fast, my friend. I thought one of those plays were against Navy, right?
Yeah, Navy was up.
Florida State's not Navy. I can promise you that.
Yeah. The secondary may have a tougher task catching and tackling those Florida State wide receivers. I think one of the reasons why this is such a compelling matchup, maybe more compelling even than a Florida State-Miami game, is this is North versus South. There's so many things to compare and contrast with these two very diverse universities.
It is North versus South. Cold versus warm, small and Catholic versus large and public. It's Smash Mouth versus Shotgun, Leprechaun with Shillelagh versus Chief with Spear, sensitive 90s man Phil Donahue versus 70s man's man Burt Reynolds. Now, Notre Dame was staunchly all-male until 72. From 1907 until 47, FSU was the Florida State College for Women. Notre Dame teams were called the Catholics, then the Ramblers, before becoming the Fighting Irish. FSU students voted to become Seminoles over Statesmen, Senators, Golden Falcons, Indians, and Crackers. Crackers?
Hey, she's low, flames burned out.
Notre Dame has a rich lore. The Gipper and his coach, Rock Newtney. As 2 Seminoles called him this week. FSU had the Sunshine Scooter. The Irish have had 7 Heisman Trophy winners and claimed 11 national championships. The Noles are working on their first of each.
They got us there, there's no doubt about it. And we just have to hope they can't match our speed.
Notre Dame had the four horsemen, but Florida State fields a fearsome foursome. Paul Azinger, Jeff Sluman, Hubert Green, and Jane Geddes. Florida State was recently voted #1 party school by a national publication. Notre Dame was not. Irish students can slug it out at the annual Bengal Bouts. FSU students can join the school's high-flying circus and get 1 credit for it. Notre Dame produced the immortal Montana. Florida State produced the immortal Dantana. Robert Urich.
Hey, Crackerjack, just trying to make a living and not get killed, huh? Oh, yeah, this is Dantana.
So it's come to this, a meeting of two colorful, diverse universities bringing out the finest in school pride.
Linda Kaiser from Vero Beach, Florida, sent me this in honor of the game. A toilet seat.
Have we had a Regis sighting yet today? I have not seen him. He may show up for the game. I don't know. Rockne and Montana against Corso and Dantana.
No.
It's a mismatch.
No.
We have heard rumors that there are other games going on this weekend. We'll talk about those in a minute as the preparations on all fronts continue for this big showdown. It's not cotton candy or the Cotton Bowl, but the Rose Bowl that we'll talk about. Ohio State, another important test as they continue to control their own destiny in the race for Pasadena. We'll get to it in a minute. And welcome back inside the Notre Dame Heritage Hall. Roger Clement's hanging around. Let's take a look at him in just a second. The countdown to the showdown continues. But as I said, we have had reports of some other college football games scheduled for today outside of South Bend. Some of the most important ones involving the Rose Bowl race. The question is, who will get a chance to hang out with that Rose Bowl queen on January 1st in Pasadena? Well, Ohio State is home against Indiana.
Ohio State has Raymond Harris. The Buckeyes love to run. Today, they're running for a shot at the Rose Bowl.
Illinois still very much in the race as well. Cardiac Kids facing Penn State.
Kerry Collins should do well because of the running game, but Johnny Johnson in Illinois playing the Cinderella role in the Big Ten.
In the Pac-10, the frontrunner UCLA hosts resurgent Arizona State.
Wayne Cook should be back ready to play. He's healthy, but it doesn't matter. Get the ball to J.J. Stokes, best in the country.
And at Washington, Robinson needs help in the Rose Bowl race. He can help himself by beating the Huskies.
Washington has Napoleon Kaufman, but don't forget, USD still has a shot at the Rose Bowl.
And those are all big games. We'll talk about those games on the scoreboard show at 7 o'clock. Update you what's going on in other games besides what's going on right here. Meanwhile, Nebraska taking on Iowa State. The Cyclones shocked them last year as 30-point underdogs. The Huskers can clinch the Orange Bowl by winning this game. They'd be up a game and a half with 1 to play.
Hey, you know, there are a lot of Nebraska people that are really on me right now, but this is just my opinion. And I believe that if it came down to Miami playing Nebraska, Miami is the better football team. Nebraska, yes, I would put you in the top 5, and I hope that makes you happy. You're a good football team, and I respect the quality you have.
Oh, it's too late now.
Don't waffle, friend.
I'm not waffling. Miami's number 3, Nebraska's number 4.
Nebraska's number 4. I'll tell you why. Because the media have no respect for them for one reason. They lost all those bowl games, and that's why they... But Texas A&M, that's another one. Texas A&M is 8th in the coaches poll, 11th with the media.
And the Aggies tonight hosting the Louisville Cardinals. It's our ESPN primetime game. The Cardinals coming off a spanking at Tennessee. And does that mean that the Aggies have to pound them to gain the same kind of respect?
And R.C. Slocum, he doesn't have a reputation of wanting to run the score up. He's very concerned about upsetting other people, which may hurt his team's chances in the polls.
All right, meanwhile, other games today, our Big Ten game on ESPN. Gary Moeller and the Wolverines visiting the Golden Gophers. Yes, there's some bowl consideration to go in that ball game. Moeller getting warmed up. That game coming up in just a little while on ESPN. And a reminder, ESPN and ABC Sports offering your pay-per-view quadruple option today starting at 3:30 Eastern Time. You'll get 1 game in your area on an ABC station. You have a chance to order the other 3 by calling your local cable company. Back with picks and the final comment after this.
College Game Day has been brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers, who remind you, friends know when to say when.
Everybody headed out to South Bend and Notre Dame Stadium for the big showdown. Let's go down to Pam Oliver now in the stadium with a final report. Pam?
Well, Chris, a lot of the players have begun to come out and warm up. They're getting ready for the game, of course. Scott Bentley was one of those players to come out to try to get ready for this. He's going to be in a lot of trouble today, probably, especially from a fan standpoint. He's been out practicing, and he's missed a couple. Wide left, wide right as well. And these people here, fans, have gathered to give him grief already. Want to talk quickly about the turf. It's actually in pretty good shape. It's dry. In some places, it's very slick, and that should not be a factor. They took up the tarp about an hour ago, so to get the players out here and ready to go. Now, we also saw Kevin McDougal. He's out here ready to go, and I must tell you that everyone seems to be fairly relaxed, ready to go, get this game over with. Chris?
All right, Pam, thank you. Got to be a lot of magic hanging around there. Let's break it all down now. We've talked about this game for about 2 weeks, it seems. All kinds of aspects and angles. Let's break it all down. Craig,
I just look at the ball game simply as this. Neither team has great defenses out there. It'll come down to the offenses. Kevin McDougal for the Irish, Charlie Ward for the Seminoles. If it gets in a shootout match, the Seminoles win. I look at it 36-31 that Florida State wins the football game. They've got too much talent and speed. Notre Dame has not faced this kind of speed at all this year.
Okay, I like Charlie Ward. I like his scrambling ability. Watch a goal line defense. I like a block punt by Florida State. I'll take Florida State 31-30. Hey! 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 I'll take Notre Dame 31-30.
I don't know. It's tough to not be influenced by this environment here. You're pretty sure that Florida State can cope with the mystique and cope with all the aspects of playing a game at Notre Dame until you get out here and until you see the pep rally and the spirit. And all of a sudden, I know you wanted to change your pick.
Not now. I'm going with Florida State.
I think Florida State wins as well. I think the key for the Seminoles is avoiding a special teams or defensive touchdown by the Irish. Under Holtz, they've been absolutely amazing at creating a touchdown off that. If they can do that, you have to love Notre Dame's chances. If they can't, I like Florida State. I think the Seminoles will win by 4 points. Charlie Ward is the difference. Here's our menu on ESPN, our primetime game, the game we kicked around, the Aggies and the Cardinals from College Station. Very important if A&M is going to make a late run in the polls. Our scoreboard show follows that Big Ten football game, which is coming up in a couple of minutes at 3:30. Then at 7 o'clock, the Residents Inn show, a full half hour of scores and highlights. Bino Cook will join us then. The fans have been calling for Bino. It's Michigan and Minnesota coming up next from the Dome. Big Ten football kickoff here, not for an hour and 17 minutes. So settle in, watch some big football next. And Mike Tirico throughout the day with all kinds of updates from our studio. So long from South Bend. Enjoy the big day of college football.
The Minneapolis Metrodome, home of the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who today try to reclaim from Michigan one of the most celebrated game trophies in college football.